3,000 years ago, the high Egyptian priest committed a transgression before the pharaohs. As a consequence, he faced a dreadful punishment, being mummified alive. If anyone were to free the priest, an apocalypse would unfold on earth. In ancient Egypt, the high priest named Imhotep fell in love with the pharaoh's Seti mistress, a woman named Ankh-Su-Namun, whom no one was allowed to touch. The lovers defied the prohibition. When the pharaoh discovered it, he wanted to eliminate the couple in anger, but they retaliated first, and the pharaoh was attacked. The pharaoh's guards, known as the Medjai, rushed to the scene. Ankh-Su-Namun, unwilling to be captured alive, took her own life, hoping that Imhotep would resurrect her later, and they could live happily ever after. Defying the laws of life and death, Imhotep attempted to revive his beloved. He began a ritual, reciting incantations from the Black Book of the Dead. Ankh-Su-Namun's soul started to reunite with her body. However, before he could complete the resurrection, the pharaoh's servants seized Imhotep. They mummified him alive, placed him in a sarcophagus, and released scarabs inside that would perpetually consume Imhotep. His soul would be eternally confined within his body. The pharaoh's servants and their descendants swore to guard Imhotep's sarcophagus forever, and if anyone were to free him, Imhotep's wrath and power would turn into a curse for all humanity. Fast forward 3,000 years to the year 1923 AD. A man named Rick O'Connell, in the French Foreign Legion, is fighting against Arabs in Egypt. Unbeknownst to Rick, the tomb of the ancient priest Imhotep is nearby. Rick is accompanied by a clumsy guy named Benny in the Legion. During the attack, Benny quickly escapes from danger, while Rick fights until the end. Ultimately, the French Legion suffers defeat, and brave Rick is one of the few survivors. Enemies corner him, and he finds himself directly above Imhotep's tomb. Rick expects a fatal shot, but the horses get scared and carry the riders away. The sand beneath Rick stirs, revealing a massive, terrifying face. Horrified, Rick flees into the desert, not understanding what has happened. 3 years later, in the Cairo Museum of Antiquities, a young librarian named Evelyn is organizing the library and accidentally pushes one of the bookshelves. They all fall like dominoes.
Oops.
To say the least, the museum director is not pleased with Evelyn. However, she remains a valuable asset for him, given her ability to read and write in ancient Egyptian. Evelyn isn't in a rush to organize the library. Instead, she heads to the adjoining hall where an unusual sound catches her attention. Abruptly, a mummy comes to life, emerging from the sarcophagus. Evelyn is frightened but realizes it's just her brother, Jonathan, playing a prank. He often engages in shady dealings in Egypt and occasionally visits his sister. This time, Jonathan stole an ancient trinket. Inside it, the enchanted Evelyn finds a map with the seal of the pharaoh who ruled 3,000 years ago. Evelyn presents all her findings to the museum director, who expresses dissatisfaction with the discovery. In an attempt to discard the map leading to the mythical city of the dead, where Imhotep is buried, he even tries to burn it. However, Evelyn and Jonathan are already enthusiastic about the idea of visiting the city. Evelyn dreams of finding sacred books and studying them, while her brother simply wants to fill his pockets with the pharaoh's gold. Despite the museum director's warnings, Evelyn decides to find a guide to the city of the dead. The most suitable candidate turns out to be Rick O'Connell, who is a prisoner in a Cairo prison and preparing to bid farewell to life. Apparently, after the battle over Imhotep's tomb, Rick's life took a downturn. The brother and sister try to convince Rick to be their guide. He flirts back, harasses Evelyn, but still promises to help if they save him from an unpleasant execution and get him out of prison. Evelyn manages to negotiate with the prison warden, Hassan, to release Rick. In return, she promises Hassan the quarter of the treasures from the city of the dead. Soon, Rick, Evelyn, Jonathan, and Hassan set sail to the shore from where they will begin their search for the city of the dead. On board, they encounter a group of Americans who also want to find the treasures of the ancient city. They have their guide, the same Benny who betrayed Rick 3 years ago.
I think I'll kill you.
Think of my children.
You don't have any children.
Someday I might.
Meanwhile, Rick throws Benny overboard. Immediately, he notices strange tracks on the deck, as if someone secretly sneaked onto the ship. In her cabin, Evelyn gets ready for bed and discovers that she's starting to develop feelings for Rick. Suddenly, a man in black bursts into her cabin, threatening her with a knife, demanding the map to the city of the dead and a certain key. Rick comes to Evelyn's aid. He neutralizes the attacker and his accomplices, but during the scuffle, a fire breaks out on the ship. Jonathan barely manages to save the ancient trinket from the flames. All passengers jump into the water from the burning ship and safely reach the shore. The next day, the friends continue their journey on camels into the desert toward the city of the dead. Along the way, Rick finds himself increasingly captivated by Evelyn. As the day unfolds, they draw near to their destination. Individuals dressed in black attire, the Medjai, descendants of the pharaoh's servants tasked with safeguarding Imhotep's tomb from external intrusion, observe them closely from a cliff. At this point, the guards refrain from intervening with the travelers. Not far from the city, the friends bumped into the group of Americans, also hunting for ancient treasures. The travelers race to the coveted city, unaware of the horrors they will encounter there. Guided by Evelyn's expertise, the friends enter an underground chamber that no one has descended into for 3,000 years. It is the very place where Imhotep once performed the ritual to resurrect his beloved. No one takes Imhotep as a real character, so the company continues to explore the chamber. Evelyn dreams of finding the sacred book of Amun-Ra, but instead, the friends find the Americans. They too descended into the underground in search of treasures. Evelyn calms the men, and the cave exploration continues. The Americans unearth an ancient statue, and from it, a sulfuric acid shower rains down on their workers. Meanwhile, Rick's group accidentally discovers a mysterious sarcophagus.
He must have been someone of great importance. Or he did something very naughty.
In the evening, the group feels uneasy about what happened to Hassan and the American workers. They start to believe that the city of the dead might indeed be unsafe. The Medjai arrive immediately and threaten them with weapons. These people in black insistently ask the explorers to stop the excavations and leave the city. They are given 1 day to collect their belongings. However, the treasure hunters don't take these words seriously. Instead of leaving quickly, they start drinking. Tipsy Evelyn openly flirts with Rick. Waving her arms, she proudly declares her librarian profession, then attempts to kiss Rick but passes out from the intoxication. The next day, the American group finds an ancient chest in the underground chamber. The lid clearly states not to open it. Doing so could awaken a cursed individual who will wreak havoc on the living. However, the Americans are unimpressed by the solemn warnings, and they open the chest. Meanwhile, Rick's group, with the help of the key from the trinket, opens the sarcophagus found the day before. A terrifying mummy with a twisted jaw tumbles out.
He must be more than 3,000 years old, and, well, it looks as if he's still decomposing.
On the lid of the sarcophagus, there are numerous nail marks and ominous messages. In the chest, the Americans discover the Black Book of the Dead, one of those that Evelyn was obsessed with. Hidden in the secret compartments of the chest are ancient canopic jars carrying Ankh-Su-Namun's preserved organs. They mock Rick's group, which only found a mummy. At night, Evelyn steals the Book of the Dead from the American group and opens it with the key trinket. She is confident that nothing bad will happen, but the book emits horrifying sounds. Evelyn recites an incantation that awakens Imhotep. Imhotep's curses begin to unfold. First, a swarm of flesh-eating scarabs descends upon the seekers. They are forced to hide from the insects in the underground chamber. One of the Americans lags behind the group, and Imhotep finds him, committing something horrifying. Rick's group is attacked by the scarabs from underground and the friends barely manage to escape. Meanwhile, Evelyn accidentally enters a hidden room. Here, she sees an American who survived the encounter with Imhotep. The mummy took the man's eyes and tongue, making it look even more terrifying. The monster calls Evelyn the Princess Ankh-Su-Namun and offers her to follow him. Rick and the company come to the frightened Evelyn's aid. Rick shoots Imhotep, hoping that this time he won't rise again. The friends quickly escape from the underground, while the mummy rises from the ground. Outside, the friends are met by the Medjai, who are furious that Imhotep has been resurrected. It is impossible to eliminate the immortal monster, and he will bring a curse to the entire world. Meanwhile, in the underground chamber, Imhotep encounters Beni. He prays to all gods, and the mummy hears in his prayers the language of slaves. Imhotep then offers Beni to become his servant and help gather all the treasures taken by the Americans. The seekers leave the city of the dead, unaware that the mummy is following them. The friends return to Cairo. Rick hastily packs to leave Egypt, as he doesn't know how to defeat the immortal mummy. Evelyn is also puzzled but willing to stay and find a way to stop the monster. Imhotep and Beni arrive in Cairo and go to the eyeless and tongueless American. The mummy takes away all other parts of the unfortunate man's body. At the same moment, all the water in the country turns into a human-like red liquid.
And the rivers and waters of Egypt ran red and were as blood.
This is another curse of Imhotep and a harbinger of the apocalypse. Next, fiery spheres from the sky descend. Hiding from them, Rick and Evelyn discover a desiccated American and a revitalized Imhotep gaining strength. Rick shoots the mummy, but the bullets have no effect. Imhotep approaches Evelyn, towards whom he feels a strong attraction, and once again, he wants to take her with him. However, the monster suddenly notices a cat in the room and flees in terror. To understand what's happening, the friends go to the director of the Museum of Antiquities. Like the people in black from the desert, he is a member of a secret order protecting Imhotep's tomb. Their goal was to prevent the monster's resurrection, but something went wrong. Imhotep has only one weakness. Until he fully resurrects, he fears cats as guardians of the afterlife. However, if the monster fully revives, everything will come to an end. To come back to life, he will drain the life force from the people who open the chest with the treasures. This includes all members of the American expedition. Evelyn also awaits an unpleasant fate. After Imhotep is fully restored, he will use her to resurrect his ancient love, Ankh-Su-Namun. Evelyn won't survive this ritual. A new curse arrives on Earth, a solar eclipse. The friends devise a plan to stop Imhotep. Rick encounters Benny, who confesses to becoming Imhotep's servant and is searching for the Black Book for him. In it is written the incantation with which the mummy plans to resurrect his ancient love. Meanwhile, Imhotep eliminates 2 more expedition members and takes canopic jars, stolen from the chest. The monster nearly completely restores his body. In this form, he seeps into the room where Evelyn sleeps and kisses her, imagining her as Ankh-Su-Namun. Rick and the cat burst into the room, interrupting this romantic scene. Evelyn summarizes the situation. There is a black book that brings people back from the afterlife. It was with this book that she accidentally resurrected Imhotep. But there is also a second magical book, the Golden One. Using it, they can send Imhotep back to eternal rest. But first, they need to find the Golden Book. Most likely, one is in the same city of the dead, but in a different statue. Growing in strength, the monster unleashes the 10 plagues upon the Egyptians and subjects them to enslavement. Imhotep now commands an army of devoted slaves determined to obstruct the friends in their quest to locate the Golden Book. Outsmarting the hypnotized crowd, the friends leap into a car and embark on a quest to find the Golden Book. The bewitched individuals latch onto the vehicle, attempting to impede the seekers. The final American among them is dislodged from the car. Imhotep locates the man and absorbs his life force. With this act, the monster is now completely rejuvenated and attains invulnerability.
It's the creature. He's fully regenerated.
Imhotep corners the friends and takes Evelyn with him to the city of the dead to resurrect Ankh-Su-Namun. Rick can't bear to watch Evelyn being taken away, but he is powerless. Benny takes the key box from Jonathan. The villains, along with Evelyn, leave, and the hypnotized crowd attacks Rick and the group. The director of the Museum of Antiquities detains the enraged people, allowing Rick, Jonathan, and the tomb guard to escape. The friends find a courageous pilot with a plane who can quickly take them to the city of the dead. Imhotep, in the form of a vortex, brings Evelyn and Benny to the same place. The monster notices Rick's plane in the sky and summons a sandstorm. Imhotep's face emerges from the huge sand wall, and Rick shoots at him in horror. Recognizing the imminent danger, Evelyn kisses Imhotep, diverting his attention from his sorcery. This act ensures the safe landing of the plane carrying their friends, albeit with some turbulence. Rick, Jonathan, and the tomb guard survive, unlike the unfortunate pilot. Imhotep and his slaves enter the underground chamber, where the villain resurrects his old accomplices and prepares for the ritual to revive Ankh-Su-Namun. Rick's group also enters the underground chamber from the other side, encountering helpers of Imhotep. The men fight them off, using weapons and explosives. Later, Rick and Jonathan find the Golden Book, while the tomb guard bravely covers them. Evelyn's situation is less fortunate. Imhotep ties her to a table next to Ankh-Su-Namun's mummy and begins a gruesome ritual. The spirit of Ankh-Su-Namun emerges from the soul reservoir and enters Evelyn's body. The villain's only task now is to eliminate Evelyn to give life forces to Ankh-Su-Namun. However, Jonathan bursts into the room joyfully with a golden book, disrupting Imhotep's plans. To open the book, a key is needed, which the villain carries on him. While Imhotep is distracted by Jonathan, Rick frees Evelyn from her restraints and neutralizes the other mummies using their individual parts. Suddenly, an entire army of mummies, obedient to Imhotep, storms into the room. Now, all hope rests on Jonathan. If he reads the spell on the cover of the Golden Book, he can control the mummies. While Rick and Evelyn draw the monster's attention to themselves, Jonathan tries to decipher the ancient Egyptian language. In the crucial moment of peril for Rick and Evelyn, Jonathan finally commands the mummies to attack Ankh-Su-Namun. Imhotep loses his temper and wants to harm Jonathan. Rick distracts the villain, and Jonathan steals the key to the book from him. While Imhotep vents his anger on Rick, Evelyn opens the book, recites the spell, and strips Imhotep of his superpowers. Reduced to a mere mortal, Imhotep becomes vulnerable, and Rick easily defeats him. Imhotep descends into the soul reservoir and becomes a harmless mummy. Benny remains unaware of this and calmly steals treasures from the Golden Room. In the process, he accidentally activates a magical lever, and the ceiling in the dungeon begins to collapse. The friends quickly escape, attempting to save Benny along the way. However, due to his greed, he lingers and remains trapped in the dungeon with hungry scarabs forever. Rick's team makes it to the surface and runs out of the city of the dead, which is rapidly crumbling. All that remains are huge clouds of sand. The tomb guardian miraculously survives. He thanks his friends and departs. Jonathan is upset that he couldn't stock up on treasures. Rick and Evelyn, however, are happy because they found the ultimate treasure, their love. Would you seek treasures in a place where ancient evil resides? Share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.